Círoבין, Perik Aleph, Mishnah Yud. Says the Mishnah, Makifin bekonim ubilvad shelo yehei ben koneh lechaveroi shlosha tefochim. Says the Mishnah that we can use the principle of lavod also with vertical gaps, insofar that we can use canes and stick them in the ground, provided the canes are less than 3 tefochim apart, it would be a valid mechitza. And then the Mishnah qualifies when can we use such a mechitza. Says the first opinion, we have 4 opinions in this Mishnah. Says the first opinion, the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, B'shayoro dibru divrei Rabbi Yehuda. When do I say that I can use a mechitza, either of shesi, which is the vertical mechitza, the warp, or the erev, either or, erev meaning the horizontally, we can use the principle of lavud, as we have learnt in the previous Mishnah. That is only in a situation where it's a camp. The poskim define a shiora, a minimum of 3 people on a journey. In such a situation, says Rabbi Yehuda, you can use a mechitza, which is only either shel shesi or shel erev. We don't need a complete mechitza, which is a mechitza which has both horizontal and vertical parts to the mechitza. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. And if it's not b'shayara, then in order for an individual to encircle his area, he would require a mechitza both of shesi and erev. If he only has a mechitza either of shesi, either of vertical posts, or of erev, only of horizontal strings, ropes, which we mentioned earlier, that for an individual he would only be able to carry in a minimal area of base sosayim, which is 100 amas times 50 amas, that's 5,000 square amas. But more than that he would not be able to carry. B'shayora, even if he has a mechitza, either of shesi or of erev, then he can carry the larger area. The second opinion is the opinion of the Chachomim. The Chachomim omrim, lo dibru v'shayora elo behova. The case of which we mentioned, that we can use either a mechitza of shesi or erev, is lav dafka with a shayora. We take the case of shayora because that would be the normal natural case where you'd want to use some sort of partial mechitza. But the truth be told, you could even use a mechitza either of shesi or erev, even if it's not in a situation of shayora. We'll see in a moment, this Chachomim only talking about a case, they're adding that a yochid who is baderech can use a mechitza of shesi or erev, but a yochid who is beyishuv, who is in the settlement, he would also agree, the Chacham would also agree to Rabbi Yehuda that they would require a full mechitza. Then we get the third opinion, kol mechitza she'eno shel shesi v'shel erev eno mechitza divrei Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosef, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, which you mentioned earlier, is even more machmer and says any mechitza which is not a shesi or erev, even in a shayora situation, is not considered to be a mechitza. That you always require a mechitza shel shesi and erev to carry beyond the areas of base sosayim for each person. Even Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda would agree, if you had a mechitza of either shesi or erev, then you'd be able to carry the minimal area of 5,000 amas. But not beyond that, unless you have a mechitza of both shesi and erev, even in a situation of a shiora, even in the case of a caravan, he gives no heta. Then the fourth opinion is again Chachomim, and the Gemara explains the difference between this Chachomim and the previous Chachomim, the Chachomim who argue with Rabbi Yehuda, and here the second lot of Chachomim who argue with Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda. Chachomim omrim echad mishnei dvorim. You can either use a mechitza shel shesi or a mechitza shel erev. At first glance, this seems to be exactly the same as the previous Chachomim, but the Gemara explains the Chachomim go further than the previous Chachomim. Whereas the previous Chachomim said that you can use a shesi on erev not only in a camp situation, but even for a yochid, they only said a yochid who is baderech, who is not at home, not in the yishuv. Whereas this Chachomim would hold, you can have a mechitzo of either shesi or erev, even for a yochid in the yishuv, and so whatever it is, whether it's a yochid or a rabbim, whether it's b'yishuv or b'midbar or b'derech, we do not distinguish. In all circumstances, you could use a mechitza either shel shesi or shel erev. The halacha is in the main like the Chachomim, that a mechitza shel shesi or mechitza shel erev is good enough, with a qualification that according to we pass in a little bit like Rabbi Yehuda, insofar that a yochid who has a mechitza of a shesi or erev is restricted to 5,000 square amas. The Mishnah continues, Arbor devorim potru v'machane. Previously we were talking about a shiora. A shiora is a camp of 3 individuals, and that's how we define a shiora. Here we're talking about machane. Machane means in a military situation, whether it's a milchemes reshus or milchemes mitzvah, and the poskim say that the minimum number of soldiers to qualify for a machane would be 10 soldiers who are on military duty. Clearly we're not talking about where it's pekuach nefesh. If it was pekuach nefesh, then the Mishnah would not have to point out all these particular dispensations. That's obvious. But we're talking about even where they're not actually on active military duty, but nonetheless they are in a military situation. So 4 things the Chachomim exempted in a situation, in a machane situation. Number 1, mevi'in eitzim b'chol mokum. Normally the rule is if wood has been packed in a bundle, then it's a siman that it's not hefker. But in a machane situation, the Chachomim said hefker best and hefker, and there's no din of gezel. The soldiers could help themselves to the wood without worrying about the problems of gezel. That's one heter. Number 2, they peturim mirachitzas yodayim. The halacha of washing yodayim, washing the hands before the meals, is not required in a situation where it's b'machane. The Gemara points out, however, mayim achronim, which in those days they regarded as sakona, whether nowadays it is obligatory or not is a difference of opinion. We have heterim for mayim achronim nowadays. We can't go into that now, but in those days, mayim achronim, to wash your hands after the meal was considered if you didn't wash, it was a question of sakona because of the melech sakundras, the salt which is on the hands, which could be dangerous. And therefore, even in a machane situation, the Gemara says there would be no dispensation for mayim achronim. So, paradoxically, we're more machmer with mayim achronim than we are with mayim rishonim, unlike nowadays. And the third situation where we would be more lenient by machane is with regard to demai. That is, the peiros of an am ha'oretz, which are bought from an am ha'oretz. We are machmer to take trumas or masras. Chachomim made a gezerah to sofik whether the trumas or masras have been taken, but since rov amoratzim do take are particular about trumas and masras, do take trumas and masras, the Chachomim said in many situations that they were makel with regard to the demai, and this is one of the situations where they would be allowed to partake, to eat from demai without taking trumas and masras. Chachomim were not gozer in such a situation. And finally, the fourth situation that we were makel is mil'arev. As we know, throughout the Masechta, as we've been learning, even after you've got mechitzas, proper mechitzas, where you have several shutfin, or several participators in an area, several houses in an area, you still have to make an Eruv Chatzeros, to join everybody to make it like one unit, and this was a takonas chazal to make Erev Chatzeres. However, in a situation of b'machane, in a military situation, and the chazal will make, as long as your mechitzas are intact, as we've learned in the first part of the Mishnah, it could be a mechitzas of a shesi or erev. It doesn't have to be a mechitzah which has both vertical and horizontal parts to it, even one or the other, relying on the principle of lavud. So it doesn't have to be a complete mechitzah, but at least a mechitzah you have to have. But nonetheless, and once you've got your mechitzas, even though there are several people, 10 or above, who've got separate private facilities, private quarters where they are housed, nonetheless they would be exempt from doing Erev Chatzeres. That completes the first perek of Mesechus Ceirovin, and we will shortly continue with the second perek of Mesechus Ceirovin.